please remain standing as we take a moment to open the event in prayer, which will be led by Dr. Sofia Marco.
Let us put ourselves in the presence of God. Prayer for good humor by St. Thomas More. Grant me, O Lord, good digestion and also something to digest. Grant me a healthy body and the necessary good humor to maintain it. Grant me a simple soul that knows to treasure all that is good and that doesn't frighten easily at the sight of evil, but rather finds the means to put things back in their place. Give me a soul that knows no boredom, grumblings, sighs, and laments, nor excess of stress because of that obstructing thing called I. Grant me, O Lord, a sense of humor. Allow me the grace to be able to take a joke to discover in life a bit of joy and to be able to share it with others.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our host, Joe Ray.
Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing? Good. My name is Joe Rigg, and it's an absolute honor to stand as your host for this beautiful event. I'd like to welcome all of you here to the Dizon Auditorium this March 21st, 2025. You know, the last time I was here in UANP was about 17 years ago. I went here for a college orientation because I was considering UANP as a path for university. Long story short, my blood is actually color green, and I landed in a school that is flooded in Taft Avenue. So if you know where that university is. But 17 years later, I find myself here together with you because we have gathered today for a very special purpose, and that is to celebrate the book launch of Robin Sebolino's Bells Incense. So why don't we give the author and everyone here for coming a big round of applause. On behalf of Robin and the Plaza Books team, I want to thank all of you for joining us. Please turn to the person next to you, tell them I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Okay, wala tayong katabi, sir, yun lang, you know. Alright, now turn to the other side, the person you forgot, and tell them, actually, I'm glad you're here too. Actually, yeah, okay. How are the people there in the back? Can you hear me okay? Those sitting in the back? Okay. Well, you know, to my understanding, this room is filled with some of the closest friends and family of our speaker today, and this is a mixed group of people. As much as I would like to meet all of you individually, time does not permit me to do so, so I will call you by group. Alright? If I call your group by name, simply wave your hands and holler at me as loud as you can. First and foremost, where are the staff and the students of UANP? Wonderful. Okay, I know there's a division between like humanities. Who here has a humanities course? Just by quick survey. Okay. Whoa, we have a minimum who here. Let's try. Okay, how about here you have a business or economics course? Wonderful. How many here you're like in a communications course by any chance? Marketing, all right. Okay, very good. We'd also like to acknowledge the family and the friends. If you are family and friends of the author, can you kindly wave so that we'll know you're here? Welcome. Maraming salamat po sa pagdalo. We'd also like to give special recognition to welcome the Claretians Communication Foundation. Thank you very much, sir. Is the National Book Development Board here with us today? The NBDP? All right, thank you. Can we give them a round of applause, the Claretians? Here with us this morning is also the National Library. Do we have representatives? Welcome, madam. Thank you very much for coming. We also have Summit Media. Welcome, sir. Sir, ilang organization yung Okay, welcome. We also have the U.S. Library of Congress here with us this morning. Are you? All right. How about the Balangay Books? Do we have our representatives from Balangay Books this morning? And other members of the writing and publishing industry, we want to thank you all for joining us. This morning will be very exciting because we have some fantastic speakers here with us on stage. And we have some fun prizes and, of course, a raffle at the very end. So if you're feeling lucky today, please stay with us right to the very end. And my question, ladies and gentlemen, is are you all ready to begin? I think we can do better than that. From the front to the back, are you ready to begin? Alright, well, first and foremost, I would like to extend our thanks and appreciation to the University of the Asian Pacific, the College of Arts and Sciences, and of course, Buffalo Wings and Things. Is that right, Sir Sebo? Okay, so if you haven't had your share of wings, be sure to drop by. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Svetlana Camacho, the Vice President of Faculty Affairs here at UANP. Is Miss Dr. Camacho here? Could you give a round of applause for the VP of Faculty Affairs? Alright folks, we have an amazing event before you today, but first and foremost, I would like to welcome here to the front for some opening remarks, Dr. Joel Antonio.
Good morning, everyone. The idea of historical fiction is rather an interesting one. On one hand, fiction is a self-confessed what if, where its narration focuses on what never happened. On the other hand, history is interested in what did happen. History is also the intelligent speculation on what likely happened in the areas where the primary sources leave a gap. Fusing history and fiction together creates interesting results. On one hand, you can have fictional history that obviously has serious ethical issues. On the other hand, you have what we're celebrating today in this book launch, historical fiction. Historical fiction is fiction, a self-confessed narration of events that never happened, but in some ways also history, in the sense that the fictional events are set in a period and place grounded on real events from the past. The art of historical fiction is not easy. Okay? Sorry. Yeah. As the writer is tasked to respect the facts and the context of the past through thorough and responsible research, while simultaneously building an engaging fictional event compatible within the reality of that history. Although fiction may take its cues and conventions from the patterns of history, history, on the other hand, does not care about the conventions of fiction. But fidelity to the historical period at the same time is never an excuse to compromise everything that makes fiction writing an art. These are the things that make writing historical fiction difficult. These are also what make writing historical fiction fun. More than fun, writing historical fiction, especially when done responsibly, is a great contribution to one's community and culture. The very nature of fiction asking what if in the context of history's what was can raise insights that even historians may not have considered important or may not have considered at all. Freed from the constraints of just sticking to the data, the fictionist is free to incorporate other disciplines, such as philosophy, to get to the psyche of the people living in that period distant from our present. This art of the historical fiction writer is something to encourage, especially in these times when social media as a medium reduces people to nothing more than cardboard cutouts. Culturally, we have to go beyond the cardboard cutout mentality. We have to see people, and not as mere simplistic caricatures. This is where fiction can contribute greatly in the field of history. With this, I close the opening remarks by congratulating Robin for his daring endeavor. Godspeed, and may your books reach the readers who need them.
Godspeed, and may your books reach the readers who need them. Thank you very much, Dr. Antonio, for those opening remarks. All right. ladies and gentlemen, it is time to start this event with something interesting. We're going to test your knowledge of the book series, of the author, and a little bit about Philippine history. So DJ Robert, why don't we drop it like it's hot? Okay, before we get started with this event, we're going to play a quick trivia game. I'm going to ask you a question about the author, the book, and some Filipino history. If you think you know the answer, simply raise your hand, alright? If your answer is not correct, that's fine as well. But we will give you a prize. So madam, may premio po ito. Okay? May premio po ito. Let's do a sample question just for fun. What is the name of the book that we are launching today? Okay? Yes, madam, what's the name of the book? Bells Incense. I don't know how you knew that, but that answer is correct. Okay? There is no prize because it is an example question. So do you all know how this game works? Alright? Even the professors here in the front of history, kasali po tayo. Alright? Father, Miss Meryl, Sir Jeremy, go for it. Alright? If you know the answer. Alright, let's go to question number 1. The name of the saga is the Crusaders of the Orient Saga. What was the name of the first book in this saga? Alright, we have one lady over there, madam. Vassals of the Valley. Do we have any other answers? Okay, I'm hearing Order of the Phoenix, Harry Potter po yun. Alright. Vassals of the Valley is correct, madam. You get the first prize. Let's give her a round of applause. Okay. Vassals of the Valley, hindi po siya Vaseline, pang-massage po yung Vaseline. Alright, let's go to question number 2. Let's talk a little bit about history. In 1646, in the battles of La Naval de Manila, which country attempted to invade the Philippines? Okay, we have one here. The British. Do we have any other submissions of answers? Anyone? Yes, sir. We have one over here. The Netherlands. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Portugal. Okay, we have one student over there. The Spanish. All right, the correct answer is the Netherlands, sir. Congratulations. I think the secret is in the suits. Right? The suit gives away the answer. Right. Sir, can you tell us something a little about yourself? How did you know that the answer was the Netherlands?
Everyone will agree with us in Dr. Mesquita. I've been here for a long time, so I'm teaching history in the Spanish period, so I'm quite familiar with the Spanish period of the Philippines.
Right, so I'm asking the question, he's the one teaching the answer to the question in the university. Very good, Joe. Sir, thank you so much. Can we give him another round of applause? Alright, question number 3. I bet our history professors might not know this because it is not in the history books. The main character in the saga is called Kalag in Vassals of the Valley. He was known for being a former pirate and for his recipe in cooking what? Alright, we have one answer over there. Alright, let's give him the mic. Sir, can you tell us your name and what is the answer?
I'm James. Hello. I'm based in Lechon.
Lechon, okay. James, ano yan? Lechon manok, lechon baboy? Lechon baboy. Alright, let's see. Does anybody else have any opposing answers to lechon baboy? Anyone? May narinig kong pinakbet dyan? Okay, pwede. Or pinagawangan, adobo. The correct answer is indeed lechon. James, congratulations, you win a prize. You didn't remember that. That's okay, that's okay. Well, now we know. Alright. Question number 4. In Bells Incense, there is a character called Padre Juan, and he's based on a real priest named Padre Juan de Cuenca. What order or denomination of priests did Padre Juan de Cuenca belong to? Alright, does anybody know? You can check the Plaza Books Facebook page for some answers as well. Or we have one over here, sir.
Yes, Dominican.
Dominican? Okay, Dominican, yes. Jesuits. I love how the professors here are like really going for the prize. Dominicans, the Jesuits. Alright, any from the students? Do you have any other answers? Sorry? Alright, the correct answer is the Dominican. So sir, here at the front, thank you very much. Let's give him a prize. Alright, sir, shine bright like a diamond. Keep going for it. Alright, and last question today for our trivia game. The name of the author is Mr. Robin Sebolino, who teaches here at the UANP. Who thinks they are Sir Robin's favorite student? Put your hand up. Alright, we got one there, one there. Okay, let's give it to the gentleman there at the back wearing white. Congratulations. Okay, sir. Alright, that's you using the phone. That's right, right in the middle. The white one, yeah, he's using his phone. Alright, sir, can you tell us why you think you are Sir Robin's favorite student?
Because he supports me in my aspirations for law.
Okay, he supports you in your aspirations for law. We have a pending lawyer seated there at the back. Alright, why don't you give everyone here a big round of applause just for participating in this game. Thank you very much. Well, folks, the moment we have been waiting for has finally arrived because before us is an amazing panel of speakers. And these are the book conversationalists for today. And usually it is the job of the host to introduce them one by one, but this time we're going to have a little fun. I'm going to ask the book conversationalists to introduce themselves to us. Alright, so kindly tell us your name, something interesting about yourself, and we're going to ride along that lechon answer. Why don't you tell us what your favorite Filipino food is? Okay, is that alright? Let's start with this lady over here, madam. Can you tell us your name?
Hello, I'm Miss Meryl K. Cariaga Hernandez. Favorite food? Kare-kare. Yeah! Of course. And I cook the best kare-kare.
Maybe you'll end up in the book, right? Alright, next. Yes, Father, why don't you introduce yourselves to the crowd? Thank you very much.
Father Caio Estrada. I teach theology here. Animal Lasal. Prep all the way to college. Favorite food? Well, the same food as the protagonist of the novel, lechon.
Hello, good morning. I'm Mr. Jeremy Clemente and I teach history at UANB. And I have to match Father Caio sa animal sa ako naman is Goa Tineo on Pig Friday. But to answer the question, favorite food, it's lechon kawale.
Lechon kawale, okay. And the last person seated here, I don't know who he is. Sir, can you introduce yourself and what is your favorite food?
Hello everyone, I am Robin.
The author of Bells Incense himself?
My favorite food is walnuts.
Walnuts, okay. Okay, well we can make it Filipino, right? Walnuts. Alright, well so before us we have Mr. Jeremy Clemente. He will be leading the discussion today. He will be our history conversant. We have Father Caio Estrada, our theology conversant, who will be giving the aspect of faith in the perspective of faith to this conversation. And lastly, we have Miss Meryl Cariaga Hernandez. Just a few reminders before we begin our actual conversation. If you have questions before, during the discussion, please do write them down. The author very much wants to hear from you in our open forum afterwards. There will also be a book signing at the end of this event. And please do like and follow the Plaza Books page to which this book is released. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to all our book conversants tonight. This morning, Jeremy, why don't you take us off from here?
Okay, so good morning everyone. Good morning to my fellow conversants. Congratulations Robin on the successful book launch. I have read the first novel and I was, there has to be more of this. And I'm very happy that a sequel came out. So to begin our today, historical fiction or historical imagination has been, I would say, it's a growing, thriving, even a cottage industry because you'll see it in so many facets in popular media. You have video games like Assassin's Creed. You have what if movies like in video games, Uncharted, and so many more. The questions of what ifs in history has always tantalized the mind. You'll see so many YouTube videos and even in TikTok exploring this theme. So I would like to ask you, Robin, what got you to be interested in writing historical fiction?
Okay, actually I'm not really interested in writing historical fiction. I didn't start off really wanting to write historical fiction.
I wanted to write fantasy, actually. Mainly because of, things like Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and all the fantasy stuff that you see on TV, anime. I grew up with lots of anime on TV. I would say it's more of an accident that I started developing this interest on historical fiction. It happened during the quarantine, actually. So during the quarantine, ironically, it gives you a lot of time. I kind of have I live in a very fortunate background. I'm not one of those people who really suffered during the time. So I had the opportunity to do a bit of research and stuff, and that's when I started to come across history. I started reading a lot of history, and I thought that actually all these historical worlds, because history is a different country. In the same way Middle Earth is a different country, 17th century, 16th century Philippines is a different country. It's just as fascinating, I thought. The way people thought, very, very different from how we thought today. And I wanted to imagine that. I wanted to imagine and tell stories about that because I just really got intrigued when I started reading that. Another thing would be, it has something to do with how I read texts. So I know history is not very popular for giving us exciting things. History tends to be very objective. It's not like your fiction that follows certain structures to get you excited. You have the crisis points, the climax, etc. History isn't like that. But the way I read, I don't know how it happened to me. Whenever I read history, if for example I read the name Emilio Aguinaldo, I'm not just gonna think Emilio Aguinaldo. I'm gonna immediately, it just happens to me. Maybe my brain just associates it. Immediately, I start thinking about this old man, waking up in the morning, saying good morning to his wife and children, asking for his breakfast of tuyo, and that's how I read history. When I read history, actually, it's very exciting for me, even if it's very slow. What inspired me actually to go to historical fiction was, I remember I had lots of students, some of my best. If I tell them to read something, they will really finish it. Okay, which in my experience is kind of rare, especially if I ask them to read very, very thick books. So I asked some of my favorite students to please read Guns of August. If you know the Guns of August, I know our historians would know it. Written by Barbara Tuchman, it's a Pulitzer Prize-winning novel about how World War I started. So it's a very bloody time, and it really made me think of how could these people start World War I? A series of accidents, series of silly decisions, also smart decisions for that particular time. Okay, so I was so excited reading that. I made my student read it. She didn't finish it. And I thought, why? She said it's so boring. And that's what I thought, maybe if I want to get people into appreciating history, it really needs to make use of the techniques used by fiction to get people excited. Because, we cannot force things into people if they don't like it. There has to be the emotional appeal, and I think that's where fiction kind of excels. Give them the emotional impact of fiction, and then the intellectual aspect of it will also follow. So I think that's one of my inspirations. Why I wanted to write historical fiction. I love history. I like people, whether they're people who are history already or people today. And I wanted to share that with others through the power of fiction, the rhetorical devices of fiction. Get them on board. Get them invested that they're actually reading real people, beautiful things through fiction. Okay, so that's it. I hope.
I think Theodore Agoncillo would actually smile on that idea because Theodore Agoncillo wrote an essay called Imagination in History. And this is how he frames it in a way. When you write history, you really have to put yourself in the minds of your subject. You have to make this intimate connection with them. So that when you write your history, when you do your interpolation, it comes off as something very realistic, something that it does not veer away from the historicity of your subject.
I have a comment, Robin. I really love your answer because I remember I watched a play titled William. William, of course, the subject matter or the main or the hero is Shakespeare, right? But the title of the play, watch that. The title of the play was William, and the reason is because you want William to, you want him to be relatable. you want to focus on daily activities. You want to focus on those little habits, those little things, which make him human. Because when you say Shakespeare, diba, the gem of evil, the noble substance of the mouth, his own scandal, etc., etc. It seems as though he can intimidate us. However, when you call him William, he's relatable. He's a person, as mentioned by Robin. He has these habits and mannerisms for sure, and I think that's a good habit for you to take into account those. What do you call it? The mundane, right? The mundane, those simple things, rather than looking at the intimidating, dramatic side. Let's try to humanize them. So yeah, that's just my comment, Robin. Thank you for that.
What for God? Would you like to answer?
Yeah, but what struck me about historical fiction, and you mentioned fantasy, that you really wanted to think about fantasy first of all. The things that there are fantasy books or writers and other historical fiction that would, but then sometimes you tend to think that the characters that they come up with are sort of like plastic characters that seem to be the templates of ways of acting. But then what catches my attention is that the characters, if you really are going to write about, let's see, you project history, be it fictional or otherwise, or fantasy, then they are humans who have to make decisions freely. And the choices that they make have repercussions. And many times, as happens in reality, when you make a choice, you don't expect that things turn out, first of all, you expect things turn out according to why you choose that particular matter. But given the contingency of this world, there are many other factors which also enter into play, which are beyond your control. And so therefore you make a choice. But then, there are also consequences that you didn't expect. But you have to accept all of that. You take it, all of it. You cannot just simply say, well, I choose this, and I hope that things turn out the way I want them to. Many times, they may not. And there may be other things which you don't expect, you don't want them, but then they're there. So, like I was reading the novel, that's what you notice also. I compare it sometimes with other, well, these are my favorite fiction or fantasy author, actually, is Terry Brooks. What I like about him, and which also I noticed in the novel of Robin, is that they're very human. They have weaknesses. Their choices are constrained by what they know, many things they don't know, but they have to make a decision. And once they make a decision, there are things that turn out which are not exactly according to plan, and so therefore they have to accept that and they have to work with it, which is really what I think historical fiction as well as fantasy should deal with. That we're not talking about the characters that seem to be like characters in a game or a video game or a computer game, but they're real people who have to accept this consequence of their decisions. They, with all of their weaknesses and limitations, but they have to act according to what really turns out. But precisely, this also really, I bring it up to another level also. It's not simply that things turn out like that by chance, that there's always someone higher, God, who guides everything according to his providence. This isn't just simply that things happen by chance. Everything happens always according to the plan of God in one way or another, but he takes into consideration the choices that we make, the free choices that we make.
Thank you, Father, for your eloquent answer. I want to focus, or Robin, on the periodization of your novel, because even in historiography, at least in the way I saw it being taught when I was in elementary, when I was in high school, there's always a tendency that starting point will be a little bit of the pre-Hispanic, and then it will jump to the Magellan Lapu-Lapu incident, and then after the Battle of Mactan, it really depends if they will talk about the in-betweens. They will immediately jump to the Gomburza, the rise of nationalism, Philippine Revolution, and then all the way to the modern period. But what I find very interesting with Bells Incense is that you focus, Robin, on the 17th century. It's something that's not really talked about. So I'm curious, what made you choose this specific period to be the setting of your novel?
Okay, so one of the things that I always asked when I wanted to write this was, actually it's a question that I always ask, yung question na parang, why are Filipinos so lost about their identity? And ganun. So obviously, how do you get to know the identity of a nation, of people? Usually you go to history. No? And the history that I got taught, no? Maybe some of you would think as well, who have the same experience was, yun nga, parang like that. It starts with pre-colonial. We got conquered by America, Philippine Revolution, because we, yun nga, inapitaw tayo ng mga Braille and the Spaniards and all that. And then you have the Americans and then etc. Parang it doesn't explain it. It doesn't explain to me why Filipinos behave like that. And as I was reading history, that period, yung 300 years that we don't usually talk about, yung from the arrival of Legazpi up until yung Philippine Revolution, I think that kind of explains it because it explains to me, it helps me understand why so many people, for example, would go to the Nazareno. Why so many people would go to the Naval. None of our history explains the religiosity of Filipinos except that it was forced upon them by the friars. Now, I'm sure maybe that happened, no? Maybe some people nakisama lang, mahilig makisama yung Filipino. So maybe nakisama lang since their dad too converted and they will convert as well. But I think it's too simplistic of an explanation. And then reading this history, na Filipinos actually fighting along the Spaniards to protect their religion kasi there's a threat of the Dutch who are mainly Protestant. Diba? And hence you have the Naval. No? It kind of explains it. There is something missing that will explain the Filipino psyche, which I think is a little bit Hispanic, a little bit Catholic, and then a little bit pre-colonial. In fact, I really like yung thesis ni Dr. Zialcita on this na Filipino culture is really a mestizo culture. If we are not mestizo by blood, at least we are mestizo by culture. It's an intersection of the Austronesian, the Chinese, of course, and the Spanish. Actually, I wouldn't even call it Spanish because I was looking at the demographics of the Spaniards in the Philippines. They almost never exceeded 500. The Spaniards were never interested in the Philippines. It's too far. Who were the Spaniards who were coming here? Mainly the priests. No? So in 2000, I would look at, from 16th century to the 19th century, siguro mga 2,000 lang on average yung number of Spaniards. Maybe 3/4 of that are also friars pa. When they would go places, the other Spaniards would just stay in Intramuros, wait for the galleons, and then kapag nakabingo sila sa galleon, because when you have a successful galleon investment, you're set for life. And then when that happens to your lay Spaniard, I got my galleon jackpot, uwi na agad sila sa Mexico. So who were the Spaniards who really stay here? I mean, it's really the Spaniards. I mean the Spaniards, the friars. So I think that kind of explains. So maybe I'm guessing, of course, a lot of friars were corrupt. I mean, who's not corrupt? We all tend to be corrupt. But I think there were also who were genuinely sincere in what they're doing. So that thing, it also puts a lot of things in perspective. Like one of my favorite things was when the Dominicans were really not interested in converting the Philippines. So if I would put myself in the shoes of the Dominicans, so see, Father mentioned something about the consequences that are beyond our control, about our choices. We're all humans kasi when we make choices. Sometimes we're sincere in making choices. Sometimes we do this for our personal gain. So I would imagine myself a Dominican, in the 17th century, 16th century. I got an instruction from my boss, go to the Philippines. The first thing that I would think, given who I am, I can only think based on how I think and my sensibilities. Number one, kung papadala sa Philippines. I mean, gulo-gulo dyan eh. Diba? And I would see a lot of accounts of the friars saying, puro lamok daw dito, puro malaria, and all that. And that they'll never see their relatives anymore. No? So that's the first thing that I would think. Number two, if I will go there, I will really need to pray hard. No? Another reason, if I'm a very calculating friar, if I will go to the Philippines, what other opportunity can I find? And I think the Dominicans themselves would admit to this. They will use the Philippines as a stepping stone to convert China. Because obviously, if you convert China, you will be a superstar at that time. If you convert, brown people in the Philippines, parang walang prestige. There's not a lot of prestige. I mean, don't take offense if you like the Philippines or not. For me, I just think it's funny. But But again, there must be very sincere friars who are willing to go to the Philippines and convert those Filipinos that will just make them forgettable in history. And I think those are the admirable stories that we're not listening to, that we're not hearing. That's why I wanted to explore the 17th century. Yung mga stories na will explain why Filipinos are like this. Why, kunyari, may problema sa bayan mo, you go immediately to the parish priest. No? Why you would tend to be suspicious of your neighbor. Why do we live in gated communities? No? Parang barangay pa rin, you know? In other countries, we open that up. But here, you have your, barangay this, barangay that. And parang, kahit nga malls, parang barangay on their own, papasok ka lang, may inspection pa. No? The assumption is, kung not a customer, baka magnakaw ka muna. You know? So it's kind of bizarre. And that was how it was before. It was explained kasi, correct me if I'm wrong, I know before pa, if a non-friar Spaniard would leave Intramuros to visit a barangay, kailangan nila ng permit, right? Kailangan nila ng permit. That was how it would work before. So we tend to be very suspicious. I don't know why. Anyway, it's just a bizarre world for me. Maybe our historians would have a clearer picture of this. But as I was reading this, yeah, I really saw the humanity of the Philippines. Our weaknesses that stretch way beyond. Bakit very partisan tayo? Like, there's a controversial thing, no? Why the people of Davao still love our former president who's there, no? Parang it's like before na we support our datu. No? Whatever happens, we are loyal to our datu. And the other enemy is like BBM is just a datu of Ilocos, parang gano'n. And Lenny is just a datu of Bicol, parang gano'n. See what I mean? So that kind of complexity, I was able to see that much better. And I was able to see it more beautifully, realistically, in writing historical fiction. So one more thing, no? Actually, I'll be the first person to see that. Fiction lang yan, no? But I'm writing fiction lang yan. Okay? And it struck my mind. Kasi one of the rants that my professor gave me when I was in college was, he was so defensive when one parent complained to him, why are you teaching my children fiction? When I checked the dictionary, what fiction said, it said figment of imagination. Basically, parang ano lang, fairy tale. Why do you teach my children that? We're paying thousands of pesos to read that. Okay? But anyway, interestingly, in my writing experience, okay, I realized that I have to be very, very careful in writing my characters. I really have to not make them very simplistic, but rather, at least as much as possible, be more complex in how I would write them. Which is interesting because I think I tend to be fair in judging the characters I invent than the actual people that I see in my daily life. You see what I mean? So at least I have that exercise in historical fiction, which I hope can translate to when I judge other people, you know, around me. Okay.
Yeah, just to add na Robin, you mentioned the Dominicans. I do research kasi on the Augustinians naman. And I agree na a lot of them, instead of going straight to the Philippines kasi nga their task, kasi when a religious would want to go to the Philippines, you have to apply for licenses. So the procurator or the guy in charge of recruiting the religious, susulat yun doon sa hari and then they would ask, oh, magdadala ako ng ganitong 40 people. And then the king will provide the budget. By the time na procurator, dumating siya doon sa Spain, so he'll bring 40 religious with him. Pagdating sa Mexico, kung hindi namatay yung kalahati, swerte ka na. But by the time of going to the Philippines, from 40, there's one account na 7 na lang yung sumama. And then nagre-reklamo siya na parang, sayang yung budget. Kasi ang sinasabi nila nung Agustinians, I'd rather stay here in Mexico. Kasi I know a lot of people here. I know some of my friends from the monasteries, andito na sila. I don't want to go to the big unknown in the Philippines. And you know, so that's an interesting dynamic, diba? During that time. Yes.
You have a great sense of history, Robin. Wow. Huwag ka lumipat sa history department, literature department forever. So, just a disclaimer, Robin asked me not to read Bells Incense yet because he wanted me to represent you, the audience members, have not yet read the material. Okay. So I have prepared a few questions. But first, Robin, I just want to know, what's your greatest frustration as a writer? And also, follow-up is this. Follow-up, I'm curious, do you ever feel tempted to use tools like ChatGPT to refine your articulation? Or are you particular about choosing each and every word when you write?
Yung frustration. Parang wala pa yata, I don't think I'm that old yet. So for me, it's just really enjoying this for now. Siguro my frustration is, I wish I could write more. I wish I could write more. Kasi I know a lot of writers will say it's really a struggle to write. It also is the same for me, pero for me, the struggle to write is like, you know when you struggle when you go on a hike? When you go on a hike, go climb Mount Pulag. Di ba, there's a struggle because you need to exert the effort. That's the kind of effort I feel when I write. You're struggling, but you're enjoying. That kind of a struggle. So maybe that's the only frustration. I wish I could do it more. Because it takes a lot of time. You know,
They have so many rules, right?
yeah, I have to do so many things because of the cares of the world. Because of the cares of the world, I need to earn money, and it's not a lot of time. It's not a lot of time. I need to interact with people. How many students did they give us? I think I was given hundreds. That's just me. I'm just one person, versus hundreds of students, and then I have my imaginary characters. It's very hard. It's very hard. What's just the second question again?
Because we really do want to get to know you as a writer, but of course we will touch on the themes and the book, of course. But I would love to grab this opportunity and ask you, do you ever feel tempted to use tools like ChatGPT to refine your articulation? Or are you so precise with your diction or word choice?
No, I don't have a ChatGPT. I would sometimes check if how it would phrase things, pero I would say 100% of the time I don't like the way it phrases things. For proofreading, the thing is, I tried proofreading with ChatGPT before, but it changes it. I told ChatGPT, don't change the style. It will still change the style. So it's not just gonna do proofreading. Yeah, thankfully I have my wife to do that for me. She's a very good proofreader. And my wife also does proofreading. So she does the proofreading. She's actually my first critic. And I like her attention to detail and all that.
Aside from the 17th century backdrop, were there any other factors that you considered in writing the Vassals of the Valley novel in Bells Incense?
I mean, my being a human being born of the 21st century, plus my understanding of human nature. So these are the things I learned from literature in Filipina. So for example, like my character here is a pintado. So how do I write my character? So I would imagine myself, I was the pintado. So it's like a child's play. I would imagine myself, I was a pintado in Samar, 17th century, and then suddenly there's a fraile who arrives. How would I think of this fraile? No? I don't think I would think of this fraile in the same way Sila Rizal would think of a fraile. He would probably think of them as someone different. And yeah, based on the historical records, I have to be limited to my historical records. Parang yung approach talaga ng pintado is someone, a fraile comes in, yun ang Filipino, we're very accommodating. Oh, come here. Okay, then I'll listen to you, what do you have to say? And then if benta sa akin, then okay, come here. I mean, I will believe whatever you say. No, that's how the human beings behave, right? I mean, I don't think people as racist as social media likes to think we are. When we hear foreigners speak, whoever it is, when they talk to us, we listen to them. If we like it, then fine, we will use whatever they say. If we don't, then I'll be polite to say yes, I agree with you, but actually I won't do it. So something like that, that's how I would imagine it. That's my understanding of humans. Yeah. So we call it philosophy, anthropology. Of course, my sensibility. Yung sensibility of the 21st century that I have, and I think that could be the limitation of this. I don't know how they taught in the 17th century. In the 21st century, kasi my observation, again, I didn't see other centuries, but I think we like to think about money so much. We like to think in practical terms. So again, if I have my character, I have my fictional fraile coming in. One of the things that I tend to think of first thing is, how can this friar help me have money or attain worldly advancements in life? I think that's my limit. I try to imagine something else. Maybe this Pintado would think, how can this friar help me become a better warrior? Or a better spiritual person? I would think along those different categories and lines. Yeah, but that's how I would set from the 17th century.
Corollary observation, apart from all that we've been talking about the religious aspect, no? And the frailes and all that. This is a thought that had come to me before. It might be a bit simplistic. I mean, I'm not a historian either. No? But I was thinking, why did the Catholic faith take root here in the Philippines? Whereas, if we think of it, I mean, I'm sure that there were renowned friars and even people who, Ezequiel Moreno, a couple of others, matunog, no, ng konti. But then, if you come to think of it, mas matunog si St. Francis Xavier in China, Japan, or other important. So, but then, the faith didn't take root there. It took root here. So I was. It's a mystery, evidently. It's something that I would also beyond human explanation. But just that. So because of so to say that I think the involvement of even ordinary people in the novel, it does make sense in the sense that there's something that's acting, which is not just simply human factors, something that is more greater or beyond the human thing.
Yeah, mahirap din siya, mahirap din siya i-factor in the spiritual, especially if you're coming from a 21st century perspective. One of the things that I keep doing with my book is, I would, the control F, right? I would do control F and then I would type God. If I've written God more than 4 times, that's too much. In the 21st century sensibility. Because I don't know, it's just me, maybe I'm just paranoid, pero parang feeling that people don't like that word today. Especially, unless you're gonna be very ironic about it. Otherwise, parang, so I would do that. But anyway, just the something that's beyond what we. Why did Filipinos become Catholics? But are we also really Catholics? Well, that's also one of the questions of. I got that from a Jesuit. I mean, you're a Catholic, but you like to support these kinds of leaders. So you vote this way. You're very clannish. Are you really Catholic?
Mix na talaga, Robin. Mix na.
Oh, I mean, if people. But again, this is one of the things. This is not really it's more of a spiritual advice, but I think of it as a writing advice also. If we really want to be nice to people, you have to really make the effort to think that even hypocrites are not hypocrites. No? Ganun daw if you're a really nice person, the hypocrites you see in your life, you have to make the very bold assumption that hypocrite is probably not a hypocrite. Maybe just misinformed, or their imaginations can factor in.
Or maybe that all of us are hypocrites.
Yeah. So, I think we're all hypocrites naman to some degrees. Maybe degrees. Some are more hypocrites than others. We're more honest than we expect. We're also more dishonest than we expect. No, those things I can put there. No? Kasi again, the mystery of the human heart. Diba? Like one of my favorite lines is, the farthest star is not actually that physical star. It's the human heart. That is the farthest star that we can discover. It's a lifetime discovery you have to make. Yeah.
I somehow agree with it when it comes to writing, like when you talk about how many times God is mentioned. Because I would also like to think that maybe a good way of really presenting the divine may not necessarily be the explicit all the time. I mean, I've seen some movies, for example, which I would call them, I was talking about this with Art Tito Cruz a couple of days ago, because we were thinking about different movies to show during the season as part of the program. So the typical, what they call ram down your throat Christianity. You say that there's no way for you but to accept it because it's like you force it on people, which I think is not really the the way to go. On the one hand, people get turned off, with that type of approach. But the other thing is also because in reality, God doesn't act that way either. But in real life, if He wanted us to do something, He would just simply appear and tell us, you do this and you do that. No? Of course, sure, God, who am I to say no to you? Because you're right there in front of me. So, but what happens to my human freedom? What choices do I have to make? So there's, I think, even in writing, as you have been doing, it's not. It's good that the divine and the supernatural is there, but not so much in the explicit way, but in subtle terms, no, subtle ways of approaching it. Even the way virtues are explained, the way human qualities are explained. Well, there's a certain way of doing it, which really also makes one. You're allowed to think, not just simply that I have to accept it, but I am forced to think about it and make connections.
I remember I was reading this very, very bad Catholic literature. Kasi the author is just making use of the characters as mouthpiece to talk about theological things. No? Anyway, this novel is about a monster, and they were wondering, parang, is this monster committing mortal sin because he's killing people, as a monster? And then one of the characters gives this very long theological explanation, which I think is really bad writing. You know what I mean? But that's not only for that's not only for religious literature. Even non-religious literature who would use their characters to preach about their theology or their philosophy can be too heavy-handed as well. I saw like Marxist literature na ganun din. They would use their characters to talk about the social struggles in the social struggles, the control of capital in a very philosophical way using their characters, which I think is kind of cheap because I think stories are about actions more than stories are about they're about actions more than yung treatises in our brains. I think we are all guided by treatises in our brains. We don't really explore it. They determine the way we act. Pero ultimately, that's what stories are. I think that's how we judge people naman in real life. We don't judge them by what they preach, but by how they act. And I think that's how we should do also for fiction. I really don't like yung heavy-handed fiction. Like when I noticed na this character is starting to preach na parang ayoko na magbasa, no? I will still finish, but it really turns me off. I get tired. So maybe that's the reason a lot of detective stories are very popular. Because no, it's not preaching at all. You don't preach in detective stories, children's stories. You don't preach. You just show people acting, doing things in their lives, and we like that, no? We like that. I think it's more in sync with our instinct. No? Yeah.
In relation to that, I remember because I had this atheist friend, and of course, careful ako sa kanya because if I sound preachy, turn off siya. I never mentioned the Bible, I never mentioned scripture, ganon. However, he himself embraced the faith because of what he saw in creation. Beauty. Beauty can lead to God. And it's something natural. You don't even have to force it. After all, there's no discord among sciences, mathematics, and so forth, because there's you have this absolute being who created these things. And it's just so natural for man to be able to discover the truth about himself. And you don't have to be preachy. You don't have to be cheesy about it. It will happen. In the most natural, unexpected way, hayaan mo lang. And then, if he exposes himself to beauty, then he'll be able to discover some new things about himself.
So yeah, even in writing stories, whatever philosophy you have, mas maganda yung actions na. It's more fun. Just see people making decisions.
So, just to add on that, I kind of agree na beauty is really something that helps. For me, when I go to church, I always appreciate churches that are beautiful. Beautiful on the outside and then beautiful in the inside. And when people are asking me, Why do you? Is it the focus should be with God? But I always say to them, yeah, God is supposed to be at the very center of everything. But at the same time, this beauty, the beautiful artwork that you see, the beautiful architecture that you see, it enhances the experience of the divine. And it's really beautiful when you hear this beautiful choral music from the choir, and then you listen to the sermon of the priest, and then you just watch everything. And it's like an orchestra that everything makes sense. And that's what I really appreciate about that aspect.
And I'm actually quite happy when I bring friends along and then they appreciate the beauty of the churches. So which brings me to my next question for you, Robin, is I want to talk about the characters. And what I like about your novels is you give voices to ethnicities that we don't usually hear about. Like for example, in Basils of the Valley, it is set mostly in Luzon. But your main character is not Tagalog, it's Ibanag from Cagayan. And then this time, it's set in in portions of it are set in the Visayas. The main characters, I would expect it would be either Cebuano or Ilonggo. But you chose a setting that is not the usual. You chose Samar, specifically you chose the Warais. So, is there a reason why behind these choices?
Yeah, kasi I like unassuming characters eh. And again, based on my stereotypical observation of Filipinos, the most unassuming Filipinos are those who live outside of Manila. The most unassuming, the most humble. And why do I like humble and unassuming characters? Kasi they're the most inspiring characters, at least insofar as I read fiction are concerned. Again, when I read fiction, I'm not looking for theme. I want imaginary people to get to know when I read fiction. And based on my experience, I would dare say, my students, that's what I make them read. What really reminds you of fiction will be those characters that are very unassuming, very humble. Why are they very unassuming and humble? I think it's because through their eyes we see wonder more. You don't see wonder from the eyes of a very arrogant character. And that's why I choose them. No? I would choose these people. Na, syempre, that's my presumption. I'm from Manila. No? I have that. I have the Tagalog arrogance, no? Presumptuousness. But I like to imagine what does it mean really to be a humble person. To see it from the eyes of a Tibanag. To see it from the eyes of a Walay. No? So that just to give you like more handle on what I mean by beautiful characters that I really like. For example, I really like the character of Jim Hawkins in Treasure Island. Have you read that? I super love Jim Hawkins, no? Kasi, si Jim Hawkins, he was a very unassuming guy, and then his father died early, so he had this new father figure, John Silver. Now, John Silver is a very manipulative pirate. No? Very manipulative pirate. He pretends to be a father figure to this Jim, a very vulnerable boy. No? Pero si Jim, a very humble guy, was still very understanding up until the end of the story. He just says, you know what, I'm not gonna see this pirate who manipulated me, who took advantage of my vulnerabilities, but I wish him well. Because the world is not gonna wish him well, this pirate. Everyone hates him. But for me, parang he's so happy that this pirate, even if artificial and fake yung binigay niya na fatherhood to kay Jim Hawkins, really, appreciated that. It's good enough for him. And again, that's because of his very unassuming, maybe some people would call it naive, but very humble predisposition as well, no? I think, to me, actually, that's what fiction really gives, no? For me, if poetry gives you insight about the world, fiction really gives you people to meet, no? Even if they're fictional. In fact, for me, that's the heart of fiction. Real humans, no? Which, for me, kind of gives me a little bit of anxiety, kasi, I read historical fiction. When I read historical fiction, I get to read about real people, and then here's me inventing imaginary people, which will never compare to real people that I read about, even if that real person in history is not spoken well of. No? So yeah, that's my choice. No? Choose someone who lives in the margins, not very much talked about, and hope that I get to represent them well, no? Through their unassuming personality, their modesty, their wonder, which allows you to explore the world. Actually, that's also a prerequisite for reading. I remember J.R.R. Tolkien was talking about that. Why is he writing fantasy? Because fantasy allows us to see the world anew. But J.R.R. Tolkien will also, in the same essay, made the disclaimer, actually, you don't need to have fantasy to see the world anew. You just need to have the eyes of a child. No? Pero sabi niya, not everyone can have that anymore. No? The eyes of a child. So that's why he's writing fantasy. Okay? So I think that's also one of my goals. No? That's also one of my agenda for writing historical fiction. It's a different world. No? It's a historical world. It's like its own fantasy reality, except that there's no magic. The way we understand magic.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Would you like to?
Yeah, that's so nice because tapos na ba? Baka tapos na.
Actually, Meryl, so we'll entertain one more question from our panel here, and then we'd like to engage the students and the audience in this conversation as well, because we are very intrigued to find out what your thoughts are on the discussion and also the book, Bells Incense. Yes, Ms. Hernandez?
Okay, it's already, I agree with you in relation to your insight a while ago that in humility and sincerity, you get to see the heart more, right? It seems that arrogance fogs the heart. Okay. And then, I just have a question, Robin. How do you know when a literary project is finished? As in, tapos ka na. Yun na yun. How do you know? Because we tend to be perfectionists, right? So when do you know that it's done? You're happy with it, and then, yun na yun. That's it.
I don't know, you just feel it. No, that's done. You can always, was that Michelangelo who said a work of art is never finished? You can always keep adding. But yeah, you just have to add it.
Bala ko pa bang balikan yung vassals? Hindi tapos na. You move on, you move on.
If I have all the time in the world, I would. Yeah. Time is limited.
All right, so I think, Robin, do you have a feeling that this conversation has ended by now?
Yeah,
All right, I think we've artistically ended this conversation. Thank you very much. Can we give a hand to our speakers, our contestants here in the class? When I was tracing the track of this conversation, we went from Filipino identity to permits to ChatGPT, the wife, the cares of this world, to the divine and humility, and also on how to end something that is an artistic project. But what is much more important now is we want to hear your takeaway of today's conversation or the book. So if you have any questions, we have our team here around. We have David there at the back who has a mic. All right, can I borrow the mic, Meryl? That's all right. Thank you very much. So if you have any questions, please feel free. Simply raise your hand, or you can notify our team here, and we would love to hear from you. So so I'd like to open the floor. Do we have any questions in the house that any of the students or guests would like to ask? Yes, we have one over here.
Well, I will ask, whatever the other said, the historian's question. Because you have talked about creation of characters and all that, insights into the human soul, psyche. Now, I'd like to ask, what kind of historical research did you do to be able to make a setting and also really get closer to the culture and sensibilities of that people?
So I would do, mainly, in the interest of time, I will talk to historians I trust. Okay? So they're there in the acknowledgements, the historians I trust. Because I felt like, as I was reading, parang this explains more our reality today. Number two, I would try to read primary sources, so yeah, that helps. I have a little bit of Spanish, good enough to understand the text, so that kind of helps as well. And secondary sources. But I start with my trusted historians who will point me to first the primary sources, and then from those primary sources, I can go to secondary sources. Yeah, so that's how I would mainly do it.
And Robin, to ride along that question, what kind of research does it take to build an artistic work like this? Because I can imagine many students here are very creative, they have their own projects or artistic endeavors. Is there any piece of advice you'd like to give them on what kind of hard work or research really goes into building something that will last or make an impact like Bells Incense?
Just like just to emphasize this. So just don't be afraid to get bored. No, don't be afraid to get bored. I noticed kasi even me, no, I get afraid to be bored, and we have a very quick solution, no, our technology. So don't be afraid to get bored, no. If you're an athlete, you know what I'm talking about. So an athlete cannot be afraid to have body pains. Of course, I mean you have to exert yourself. If you're someone who has to do a lot of work with your brain, no, if it's body pains for physical exercise, if it's your brain, boredom. So just keep pushing yourself, especially when you're bored. No, even boredom ends. Okay. So yeah, don't get bored, and then don't be afraid to look at sources, all sorts of sources, especially those that you don't agree with. Okay, if you think they're triggering, that's precisely what you need to read. Okay, if that makes you feel anxious, that's probably precisely what you want to read. So balance that, no, the things that you like, and then balance that with the things you don't like, and yeah, just to see a complete picture of things.
That's a very insightful answer. It's the first time I've heard someone give you advice, it's okay to be bored. And also, it's okay to be triggered at times as long as you're educating yourself on the opposing view of a matter. Thank you very much for that question, madam. Is there anyone else in the audience that has a question? Yes, we have one young lady here at the front. Yeah. By the way, you can come here to the middle or just simply raise your hand. Our team will approach you with the mic.
Hello, my question is for Sir Robin. For those who are maybe interested in starting writing historical fiction, any words of advice and encouragement?
Okay, so in addition to reading history, I would advise you to also learn about creative writing. Learn about character, plot. So I write in a very traditional sense kasi. So I like to follow the Shakespearean formula in 5-act structure. And for me, my elements of fiction are, number 1 is character, and then plot and setting. Actually, setting is also kind of a character din. And then I don't think about the theme at all. I don't think about the theme. For me, my idea is if I make a human being so realistic enough, theme will take care of itself. Just to explain how that works, like everyone here, you're all real people. I'm sure if I study your lives, a theme will emerge. Beautiful themes will emerge because you are like real human beings yourselves. So the theme will naturally emerge if you design real, well-balanced characters with a good fair share of positive and negative traits. So that's how I would do it. So that's the only advice I can give because that's the format I follow. There are many writing traditions out there. Some people write primarily with theme. That's also fine. It's not what I do. Yeah, what else? And then meron ding the Korean structure, Takisho Tinkets. That's what they use. Take note of that kasi Shakespearean structure is 5 acts. Takisho Tinkets is 4 acts. So you will notice that a lot of Korean novellas their episodes are usually divisible by 4. They're very religious in following that. No? The Koreans are very religious, and also the Koreans are also very good at they would have Shakespearean structured stories as well. No, they follow that religiously. So study those also. So yeah, read history. You learn the techniques and the conventions for writing, and also consume literature. Now, again, watch literature that you like, and also literature which you don't like. No, you watch literature you don't like, so you know what to avoid. Yeah, and then learn how to take risks. So I understand, one of the things I really struggle with in writing this, kasi I can't understand the 21st century attention span. Okay? In the 21st century attention span, you need to be quick. No? I'm writing a novel. Novels are not for people with short attention span. No? So that's one of the struggles I had to contend with. What am I doing? These people aren't asking for what I do. Okay? So in novels, there are several elements there. If you are narrating, that's the slowest. That's the slowest thing that you can read. Dialogue is a bit faster. Okay? But the novel really shines if you narrate. So what am I gonna do? I mean, in that book, I did a lot of narration anyway. So I had to take that risk, whether or not you like it. So that's beyond my control. But I think that's how novels mainly work. So either you do narration, which is kind of slow, or you can do it dialogue, which is a bit faster. And then under narration, iba-iba pa yun eh. There's, in narration, sometimes you describe places. That's very slow. If you go to introspection of character, that's also slow. If they're killing each other, a little bit faster. but you're no match to the feelings you will see sa videos. No? I mean, can you describe reading? Can you imagine reading a Marvel movie as a novel? It's not gonna work. No? So you have to make risk. You have to know what your medium specializes in. Novels specialize in being slow. No? So it really forces you to sit down, find a quiet place. Yeah.
So it seems like the process of writing is very counterculture now. You want to make people read a book in a fast attention span world, just go against the current. And what I appreciated about Robin's answer is he's a creative writer, but his answer was be methodical in the way you approach your art, right? Which is very counterintuitive as well, and the spontaneity of art will just come out. That's my takeaway from your answer. Miss Merrill, Sir Jeremy, Father Kai, is there anything you'd like to add to that question? I think that's quite rich. You're good? All right, I think. All right, we'd like to give room for one more question. Is there anyone here, or we have a couple more? Yes, sir, we'll entertain the one here in the middle.
Hi, good morning. I'm PJ. I represent the Book Talk and Bookstagram community. So my question pertains with world building. You mentioned earlier, Sir Robin, that the resources for your research is sometimes limited. So I'm curious about the world building aspect. Like, was there an instance wherein you had trouble filling in the gaps on how to make things out, like things more fleshed out in the story, and like what can you do to overcome it?
Yeah, so a lot of times I have a lot of gaps. That's where the power of the imagination comes in. I use my imagination to fill in those gaps. So one of the things I like to imagine is, the natural scene of the Philippines before 300 years ago is very different now. No? We used to have more beautiful birds, okay, than it is now. We used to have more beautiful plants, less building, less urban encroachment. So I had to imagine that, how the Philippines look. And I invest a lot of time actually describing the setting in my novels because I want to see how different it was before. Because Manila right now isn't the best place to be in, right? It's a very nice place. So I want to give my readers a treat. See what Manila used to be before, with lots of trees, lots of beautiful birds, beautiful skyline, so you're not suffocated by buildings. Imagination yun, so imagination. Whether historical, natural landscapes. Yeah, if there's a gap, I would imagine. That's where I take creative liberties a lot.
All right. I believe we have two other questions here. We'll take one from the front row here and one the lady with the hat, if that's all right. Okay.
Hello, Robin. It's my turn to embarrass you a little. I'm Dizon, and I'm Robin's great partner ever since we were in high school, also his roommate. I want to ask, because I remember before, when you were still starting your journey as a writer, there was a time that you did hermit mode, 2 years, I think, or 3 years, you were just in your room, sleeping on the floor, right? And didn't care about the earthly things around the world. When we were starting out, we were career-driven, we were out there to prove ourselves, and we were so worried about our careers. The first question I want to ask is, what keeps you going, and how do you balance being tempted by earthly things, or succumbing to earthly dictates? And why is it? Where do you get that strength to persevere with writing? Because I remember when you were still in college, your shirt says from the Literature Society, "Pobre pero caballero," right? Poor but dignified. I was like, what? Why would you want that? A lot more people, I think, succumb to more earthly things and dictates of the world. How do you balance that, and what keeps you going? Especially since you now have a family. You just had your next child. That's my first question. And the next question is, what's next for Robin Sebolino? Do we see him sticking with historical novels, or is there a chance that we also see the imagination of Robin Sebolino in the in the character of present day characters or future characters, especially in light of all the issues that we're confronting as well. Let's say, for example, a character on extrajudicial killings or a character in the future that will probably inherit the kind of Philippines that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For world leadings, so just to give more context to Dina's question, after I finished college, and I don't advise you to do this, I didn't look for a job for 3 years. I just stayed in my room. I was just reading everything that I studied in college because I don't think I understood it well. Diba kasi with all the deadlines you tend to read very fast in university. And then so after I finished college, it's like I did my own little college at home. I read everything we studied. More clear, they were clearer now in my mind after I did that. To the worry of the world. My friends and my family were super worried. How did I get to do that? I guess I was, very blessed to be surrounded by very understanding people. I don't think I would have survived if I had a different set of friends and family members because it's really crazy. So yeah, I think that's one thing. I was also blessed with with this lack of sensitivity to worldly things. I don't think of money kasi that much. It's my wife who does that. I mean, I think about it obviously because I'm growing old and I have children. But it's not instinctive for me to think of money and to think of trendy things. Like when I see something that's trendy, my first question is, why do people go with that? I don't get it. So I'm kind of a strange human being in that regard. So those are my blessings, my temperamental blessings. So I kind of just didn't care. My apologies for those people whom I made worry with the lifestyle choices I did. Okay. What's next for me? I want to write something that's more contemporary, actually, like more 21st century, more issues in the Philippines. I'll just have to wait because right now the emotions are high. Once the dust has settled, then maybe I can start studying it more. Yeah, that's what I will do, definitely. I want you, I'm taking interest in the political situation that we have today, with the clans of the Duterte, the Marcos fighting. But I'm gonna wait until the picture is complete. I don't want to make sure that the characters are not caricature. I don't want to just paint a devil fighting another demon. I want to show them to be at least human beings with good things in their heart, sincere good things in their heart. That there's something sincere in the heart of Harry Roque, for example. I want to see that. I want to contemplate that. That there's something genuinely admirable in the vision of Bongbong Marcos. Things like that. But again, I have to wait. I have to be patient. Because right now tensions are high, and I'm also, of course, part of that. I'm also dragged into it. So later na, maybe when I'm older and less excitable, when I'm more predisposed to again being methodical about things.
Yeah, Robin, you'll have a feel when it's ready now, when the dust settles. All right, well, last question, and then we will go on to our raffle. So 3 of you will win a lucky prize this morning, and we want to thank you for staying with us so far. Yes, one question there in the middle.
Okay, hi sir. I'm one of your, I was one of your students for 21st century literature and Renaissance. And because you wrote historical fiction, I wanted to ask, how did you play about history in writing your book? Because of all of the historical details though that you also read.
Yeah, I just try to make them more fun. I just want to express them in more elegant language. Because they're not as elegant when you read them in a history book or in all those documents. So that's what I do.
All right, why don't we give the author a big round of applause. Thank you so much. I think many of you will agree with me that this is a step forward in Filipino literature. And Robin, Dino mentioned he was your friend. And for those who don't know, Robin's also my friend. He was one of In college, we were part of the debate society, and he was one of the people, him and Dino, they trained me. So I'm here today partly because of Robin believing in me and empowering me as well. So as a friend, Robin, I just want to say that I'm so proud of you and for this, and we're looking forward to the next book. So before you write your next piece, tapusin muna natin tong Crusaders of the Orient Saga. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for has finally arrived. We have a raffle draw here. Okay. How many of you feeling lucky this morning? Okay, I'm trying to figure out how this raffle contraption works because it comes in the form of a lunchbox. Okay, well, which is okay, so Robin, if you could kindly stand, sir. Here's how the raffle will work. Each of your rows are labeled with a letter, and we will be naming the seats by number. So number 1 will start here, and let's say number 10 goes to my left. So Robin, I need you to select a row and a column. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2. So this is 18. All right, well, let's find out who our first winner is. 15. I think this is
number 15.
Column 15. Column 15.
Column 15. Where is that?
19. Oh, sorry. 18, 17, 16, 15. All right, there.
11.
Yes, 15. What letter?
J.
J, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. All right, so I believe, let's just move Robin to the closest one. I believe the lady there in gray wearing glasses. Congratulations, you win a 500 peso gift check here of Buffalo Wings and Flavors. All right, let's go to our second raffle winner. Robin, who is our next winner this morning? I keep saying tonight because it feels like nighttime, doesn't it? Okay.
Column number 10.
Column number 10, which is that row over there, sir. Okay, let's see which row, Robin.
F.
A, B, C, D, E, F. All right, which means that gentleman there wearing gray with the red lace, sir, you win a prize that is 500 peso gift check to the Buffalo Wings and Flavors. Oh, all right. Wonderful. I see that the slant of the raffle is towards the left side of the room. Medyo niluto natin yung raffle content. Okay, let's go to our third winner. Our third winner is the major raffle prize. They will win a copy of Bells Incense and a 1,000 peso gift check for Buffalo Wings and Things. Robin, our lucky winner is
Column number 12.
column number 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I'm sorry. 12. 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, sir, we were lucky with that. And which row?
I.
Okay, let's do another one. Para naman manali yung side na nagagalit kayo yung side na ito, yung dami tanong galing sa side nito. Okay, row 8. So let's go this row now. Okay. 8 is right there. Okay, which row?
G.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All right, the gentleman in brown wearing long sleeves t-shirt. I'm sorry?
They go up the stage.
Yes, we'd like to invite all our raffle winners to come up here on stage. We can have a picture of the author. And to our team, the Plaza Books team, we'd like to request for the prizes to be given to the awardees. Thank you very much. Actually, Robin, why don't you go down the stage and have a picture with them? Let's have a picture right in the middle. We'll just have a picture downstage with all of them. Okay, so for those, we are headed towards lunchtime, so sa mga nainggit sa Buffalo Wings, maybe you come back for the next book launch, huh? You come back for the next book launch. By the way, can we give one more round of applause to our speakers today? We have Father Cairo, Mr. Billy Clemente, and Ms. Manuel Hernandez. Okay, to all our raffle winners, take a good look at the audience. Lahat sila naiingit sa inyo. Okay? Right. Alright, so all our raffle winners, please approach the registration table right after this event. We will be handing you your prizes there. Alright, thank you very much. How many of you enjoyed today's book launch? Can you please raise your hand? Alright, very nice. Okay, I see the smiles in your faces. That is a good sign. And I have better news for you. Malapit na po kayo kumain. No? It's almost lunchtime. Well, we have heard from our panel, but it's time to hear some cozy remarks from the author himself. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, please give it up for Mr. Robin Sebolino here in Portland.
Okay, let us give my closing remarks and then let's have lunch. So thank you everyone for attending this event, and this goes as well, and most especially for those who had to come here as a requirement. Probably the majority of you. Okay. Speaking of such, I would like to confess that writing Bells Incense has sometimes felt like fulfilling a requirement. But it was a strange kind because it was self-imposed, and no one else could have held me accountable for not finishing it. But thanks to my education, I learned to embrace requirements wherever they come from. My college life as a literature major was filled with hundreds of requirements. Some people in arranged marriages learned to love their partners. Just so some people who got required to do something learned to love what they were required to do. You could say I was required into loving literature. But it is also in the nature of a requirement that I learned to despise literature. I learned to disdain literature in the classroom as a teacher, and at writing desks as a novelist. It is not always fun, and to put a number on it, I would say I only love literature 71% of the time. If by love I mean enjoy. I would like to share with you my favorite requirement from last year. It is my favorite because it made me question and eventually renew my purpose for writing, and also because I drew plenty of energy from it whilst completing the novel I launched today. I received an assignment to teach literary theory. I consider it fortuitous to have had this task, for I would never have chosen to do it on my own. But in this major literary subject, I had to reread an ancient critic of literature, Plato. According to Plato, literature, poetry in particular, does not have a place in the ideal republic. Plato stated that literature was twice removed from reality, which was another way of saying that literature is untruthful, a pack of lies which therefore makes authors liars, as my cheeky former professor once remarked. I enjoy reflecting on Plato's insights. It also excites me to give them as part of a lecture in class. The students who hated reading would often show amazed faces, for they had found an unexpected ally in the ancient philosopher, whereas the students who loved to read would have sorry or irritated expressions. When I was a literature undergrad student, I took for granted that the reasons given by Plato were wrong. But as I grew older and started making a career in literature, I came to believe that Plato was really making a powerful point. I suspect that while nobody in the world would accept Plato's undermining of literature in theory, these same people probably believe it in practice because of the plummeting readership in many places. In any case, we novelists are thankful to those who keep the habit of reading alive in this time when Plato's Republic is becoming more and more like our own, where men can be proud of not having read a single book of poetry or fiction when they should have done it otherwise. What is the unique selling point of reading poetry or slogging through a 100,000-word novel when you can savor life just the same without them? Isn't it more touching to listen to the true stories of ordinary people than to close read the lines of invented characters like Don Quixote or Hamlet? I say this with all due respect to Don Cervantes and Mr. Shakespeare. Why did I have to write Bells Incense, a historical fiction, when I could have encouraged you to read historical accounts based on real people who had lived real lives? And thinking about the shortcoming of literature, all I could really do was concede. No novel will ever have a protagonist who can beat the charm of the most routine existence of a breathing high school student, and no fictional hero will ever compare to the lowest value placed upon the most forgettable person in this hall. But to compete with the profoundness of nature and reality is not the point of literature, and this I am somehow beginning to grasp as I review once more, thanks to my requirements, the responses to Plato. I rediscovered things from his adversary, Aristotle, Horace, Longinus, Orwell, and St. John Paul II. I reread novels, poems, and essays that I love, and through them all I have come to bring to surface an idea that I had often leaned on, although I was rarely aware of it. The penchant for writing literature, much like drawing a portrait or composing songs, is a matter of identity.
Being human and being an artist are the same thing. Humans making useless art, as opposed to functional things like airplanes, is the cosmic sign that they are at least an overtly bizarre class of species. We proclaim our humanity more, perhaps, when we draw pictures or recite poems than when we construct ships or design the most powerful computers. What I will now say might finally seem self-congratulatory, so be it. Also, I believe this has been said so many times in the past, but I want to echo it nonetheless. Making art, whether it leads to a revolution or societal change, whether it inspires or saddens the heart, whether it is beautiful art or trash, making art is already a fine deed on its own. But do not get me wrong, I do not endorse an art for art's sake philosophy. Rather, I advocate art as one of the most spiritual ways of asserting our human identity. To make art and consume art is to oblige a divine invitation to have fun, to be gratuitous, to think and feel depths of the world, to be childlike, to do something that only gods have a right to do. We obey God when we do good. We mimic God when we create and contemplate art, especially when that art is the art that is the cultivation of our own lives and the lives of others under our care. You see, I'm now including the highest art of all, the art of education. It's just a thought, and I invite you, students in particular, to dwell on this idea of engaging with art to enrich our human spirit. Think of this each time you are required to read a story, interpret a poem, or make them yourselves under the heavy pressure to meet many, many, many deadlines.
Well said, Robin, well said. Well, I'd like to ask everyone to please stand. By the way, today we have a special promo. If you would like to purchase a book, you can use the promo Dragons Launch. You can go to plazabookspublishing.com, TURL, and order Plaza Books. So you can buy these selection of books. I believe they are available outside. And you know what? So let's not forget that we are Filipino, and the most Filipino way we can end an event like this is to take one big group family picture.
1, 2, 3.